The call came on a Tuesday evening, the kind of calm, ordinary night I'd built my entire adult life around cultivating. I was in my home office, the one with the view of the distant mountains, finalizing a particularly elegant piece of code for a new security protocol. The soft glow of my triple monitors was the only light, the silence broken only by the rhythmic tap of my mechanical keyboard. Then, my personal phone lit up, vibrating against the oak desk with an urgency that felt immediately invasive. Mom. A flicker of unease, familiar and dull, sparked in my chest. Calls from my mother were never just calls. They were missions, obligations wrapped in the tissue-thin paper of familial duty. I took a steadying breath and answered. Hi, Mom. Elara, thank God you picked up. Her voice was pitched high, a forced calm that did nothing to hide the tension beneath. It was her crisis voice. I need you to come over. Now. It's about your sister. Of course it was. It was always about Lila. Is everything okay? Is she hurt? It's not physical. It's financial. It's a disaster. Just come over, sweetheart. We need to talk as a family. As a family. The phrase was a trapdoor. I'd spent 28 years falling through it. Mom, I'm in the middle of something critical for work. Can it wait until tomorrow? A sharp intake of breath. Elara, this is more important than your computer games. Your sister could lose her house. Her home. Be here in an hour. The line went dead. I sat there, the silence in my office now feeling oppressive. Lila's house. The storybook cottage in an aspirational suburb she and her husband, Dave, had bought 2 years ago at the absolute peak of the market, with a laughably small down payment and a mortgage that gave me secondhand anxiety. Dave was a brand consultant whose primary brand was overconfidence. Lila floated from one interior design passion project to another, funded by what I now suspected was a mountain of debt. I'd offered, once, to sit down with them and go over a budget. Lila had laughed, a tinkling, dismissive sound. Oh, Lara, you and your spreadsheets. Some of us live in the real world, where you have to spend money to make a life. I drove to my childhood home under a bruised purple sky, the knot in my stomach tightening with every mile. The house looked the same, neat, modest, a testament to my father's diligent civil service salary and my mother's careful frugality. Or so I'd thought. My father had passed 5 years ago, leaving a quiet void, and my mother, Gloria, adrift and increasingly tethered to Lila's more dramatic orbit. I found them in the living room, a scene staged for an intervention. My mother sat stiffly on the edge of her floral armchair. Lila was curled on the sofa, her face theatrically pale, eyes red-rimmed. Dave paced by the fireplace, looking more annoyed than distressed. Elara, sit, my mother commanded. I remained standing, leaning against the doorframe. What's going on? It all poured out in a chaotic rush from Lila. The adjustable-rate mortgage had adjusted. Up. Significantly. Dave's latest sure-thing client had fallen through. Lila's e-design business had hit a slow patch. They were 3 months behind. The bank had sent the final notice. Foreclosure proceedings would start in 30 days. It's a nightmare, Lila whimpered, a single tear tracing a perfect path down her cheek. The children, their school, our home. My mother's face was a mask of empathetic agony. She reached over and squeezed Lila's hand. We're not going to let that happen. Then she turned to me. Her eyes, usually soft with a kind of vague disappointment when they landed on me, were now sharp, focused, demanding. Elara, you're going to pay off the arrears in the next 6 months of payments. It's about $38,000. You can transfer it tomorrow. It wasn't a question. It was a decree. The sheer audacity of it stole my breath for a second. I'd worked since I was 16. I'd put myself through a top-tier computer science program on scholarships and back-breaking loans I'd only finished paying off last year. I'd climbed the ladder in a brutal industry, saving relentlessly, investing wisely. My financial security was my fortress, built brick by solitary brick. And she was asking me to hand over the keys to the drawbridge for Lila's sinking moat. Mom, that's a significant amount of money, I managed to say, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. Don't be dramatic, Elara. You make more than that in a month with your Silicon Valley salary. Dave snapped, stopping his pacing to glare at me. He wasn't entirely wrong about the monthly figure, but he was catastrophically wrong about the morality of his statement. My salary was the result of my sacrifices, my sleepless nights, my talent. It wasn't a family slush fund. It's not about the amount, it's about the principle, I said, trying to keep my tone even. Lila, Dave, you got into this situation. There are options. You can sell the house, downsize, refinance if you can find a lender. You can both get second jobs. Sell our home. Lila shrieked, as if I'd suggested they sell a child. How can you be so heartless? This is our dream. My children's stability. Elara, their family. My mother interjected, her voice trembling with emotion. Family helps family. You have the means. It's your responsibility. I'll pay you back in a month, I promise. I stared at her. You'll pay me back? With what, Mom? The words were out before I could stop them, harsh and true. My mother lived on a modest pension and Social Security. The idea that she could summon $38,000 in a month was a fantasy. Her face flushed with anger and shame. I have ways. That's not your concern. Your concern is helping your sister in her time of need. After everything I've done for you. The classic guilt trip. Her hand whipped through the air so fast I didn't see it coming. The slap wasn't particularly hard, but the shock of it, the violence of the gesture from the woman who'd never so much as spanked me as a child, sent me stumbling back a step. My cheek burned. You ungrateful child, she screamed, spittle flying from her lips. You selfish, miserable little witch. After everything. Get out. Get out of my house. Dave was smirking. Lila was watching through her tears, a gleam of something like satisfaction in her eyes. I touched my stinging cheek, looked at the three of them, a united front of resentment and entitlement, and turned and walked out. I didn't run. I walked deliberately, my back straight, to my car. I drove home in a state of eerie calm, the ghost of her handprint still hot on my skin. That was the end of the beginning. The silent treatment I expected. The venomous text from Lila. Hope your money keeps you warm at night, you soulless bitch. I expected. What I did not expect was the certified letter that arrived 2 weeks later from a law firm I'd never heard of, Hartwell and Pierce. With trembling hands, I opened it. It was a formal notice of intent to file a civil suit. The plaintiff, Gloria Ellis, my mother. The defendant, me, Elara Ellis. The cause, breach of contract and unjust enrichment. The amount sought, $380,000. The world swam. I had to read the attached narrative 3 times before it made a twisted kind of sense. The claim asserted that I had, over the past 10 years, entered into a verbal and implied contract with my mother whereby she provided me with substantial financial support, living expenses, and educational funding with the express understanding that I would repay her upon achieving financial success. This mythical support included my entire college tuition, I had loans, living costs through my 20s, I'd moved out at 18, and a $50,000 interest-free loan for my first home down payment, a pure fiction. The $380,000 was this fabricated debt plus interest and emotional damages. It was absurd. It was laughable. It was also a legal document, and it felt like a death threat. I called my mother. It went straight to voicemail. I texted, Mom, what is this? This is insane. We need to talk. The reply came not from her, but in the family group chat I'd forgotten to leave. It was my uncle, my mother's brother. Saw the papers, Elara. Always knew you were a cold one. Pay your mother what you owe her. My cousin, Lila's best friend. Karma's a bitch, huh? Can't wait to see you in court. Faced with tears of joy, a cascade of similar messages followed, a Greek chorus of condemnation. My mother remained silent. She had let the lawsuit speak for her, and my family had roared their approval. The worst was seeing my younger brother, Ben's, message. Just pay her, Lara. You can afford it. Why cause all this drama? Even he, who I'd helped through his own financial scrapes, who I'd sent money to just last Christmas, had chosen their side. The betrayal was a physical nausea. I hired a lawyer. Miranda Cruz was a shark in a sleek suit, specializing in family financial exploitation. She reviewed the documents, her expression one of professional disdain. It's a scare tactic, she said. A bad one. They have no evidence because no such contract ever existed. But they're betting you'll settle to make it go away, to avoid public family humiliation. They're counting on your emotions to override your logic. What do? I asked, my voice small. We fight, Miranda said simply. And we countersue for malicious prosecution and legal fees. But Elara, you need to understand. This will burn every bridge. There will be no going back. I already felt the scorch marks. There's nothing to go back to, I whispered. The next few months were a special kind of hell. The lawsuit was filed, a matter of public record. Discovery was brutal. My mother's lawyer demanded every financial record I'd ever had. I complied. My bank statements, my tax returns, my investment portfolios, all laid bare, revealing a story of solitary, disciplined success. In turn, we demanded proof of this alleged financial support. They produced nothing but a few canceled checks for birthday gifts, $50 here, $100 there, and a sworn, tearful affidavit from my mother about her sacrifices. It was all emotion, no evidence. The deposition was the crucible. My mother, coached by her lawyer, sat across from me in a sterile conference room. Miranda asked calm, precise questions. Mrs. Ellis, you claim you paid Elara's college tuition. Can you provide the receipts, the bank transfers, the 1098-T forms? I paid in cash. I don't have receipts. You claim you gave her a $50,000 loan for a down payment. To which bank was the wire transfer sent? What was the date? It was a check. I don't recall the date. It was a long time ago. We have subpoenaed your bank records for the past 15 years, Mrs. Ellis. There is no check for $50,000. There is no evidence of any transfer over $500 to your daughter after the age of 18. My mother's composure began to crack. She owes me. For my life. For the years I spent raising her. That has a value. Miranda didn't blink. Child rearing is a moral and legal obligation, not a loan payable upon the child's maturity. Is that the basis of your suit? That your daughter should pay you for the privilege of having been born? My mother broke down then, not in quiet tears, but in furious, screaming sobs, pointing a shaking finger at me. Look at her, sitting there so smug with all her money. She has plenty. She can spare it. She's destroying her sister's life out of spite. I said nothing. I just watched the woman who gave birth to me unravel, her love for me exposed as a transactional calculation that had finally come due. It was the most heartbreaking and clarifying moment of my life. The court date arrived. My family, aunts, uncles, cousins, Lila and Dave Smug in the front row, packed the plaintiff's side in a show of force. I sat alone at the defendant's table with Miranda. Ben wasn't there. The judge, an older woman with tired eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, heard the arguments. My mother's lawyer gave an impassioned speech about filial duty and a mother's broken heart. Miranda systematically dismantled it, presenting the lack of evidence, the logical fallacies, the glaring holes in the story. The judge didn't even retire to deliberate. She looked at my mother, then at me, her expression unreadable. Mrs. Ellis, she began, her voice dry. The court understands the emotional complexities of family relationships. However, this is a court of law, not a forum for familial grievances. Your claim of an oral contract for hundreds of thousands of dollars, with no documentation, no witnesses, and no corroborating financial evidence, does not meet the burden of proof. It does not even come close. She turned to the paperwork before her. The case is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, given the frivolous and vexatious nature of this litigation, I am awarding the defendant her reasonable attorney's fees and costs. Counsel for the defendant will submit a statement. A collective gasp went up from my family's side. Lila's mouth hung open. My mother looked as if she'd been physically struck, all the color draining from her face. The gavel fell. It was over. The aftermath was a silent tsunami. The judge's award of fees was nearly $40,000. Ironically, almost the exact amount of the original demand. My mother's house, the only asset she had, would have to be leveraged to pay it. I didn't offer to waive it. Miranda advised against it, and a deeper, harder part of me agreed. Consequences were a language they finally needed to learn. I walked out of the courthouse alone. No one from my family looked at me. They huddled around my sobbing mother, a tableau of shared victimhood. I got into my car and drove. I didn't go home. I drove to the ocean, to a high, windy cliff I'd visited as a child with my father. I sat on a cold rock and watched the gray, endless water, and for the first time since the slap, I cried. Great, heaving sobs that felt like they were tearing something rotten and old from my core. I changed my number. I blocked every single relative on every platform. I sold my house, the one they'd fictitiously financed, and bought a new one in a different county, a modern glass and steel structure that felt like a clean slate. I focused on my work with a ferocious intensity, and my career soared even higher. A year later, a letter arrived at my P.O. box. It was from Ben. His handwriting was messy, hesitant. Lara, I'm sorry. I was a coward. I saw what they were doing to you, and I didn't say anything. Mom is different now. Sad and bitter. Lila and Dave lost the house anyway. They're renting an apartment. Mom lives with them, and it's not good. I've started therapy. I'm trying to understand how we all got it so wrong. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what you built on your own. And I'm proud of you, even if no one else ever says it. Ben. I held the letter for a long time. I didn't cry. I felt a sad, quiet closure. I didn't write back. Not yet. Some bridges, once burned, reveal a clearer, if lonelier, path on the other side. My fortress of solitude was intact. It was paid for, in full, by me. And the only person whose gratitude I needed was the one I saw in the mirror every morning. The one who had finally learned that saying no to others sometimes means saying yes to yourself, no matter the cost.